Fantastic. So I think that's my cue. So it's wonderful to be here with you all this morning. We're going to be talking about, so the whole of the morning you've heard about really the shift, or the pivot, the AI pivot, and the fact that apps and AI are becoming ubiquitous in the world that we're living in. So the topic that we wanted to really dive into this morning is really thinking about the topic of quality. And how do we achieve quality excellence? We've heard about the complexities, and we've heard about the challenges that organizations are facing. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today because I have a very esteemed panel of colleagues that are joining me to discuss this. I will let them introduce themselves, but as they introduce themselves, I would really like each of you just to think about why is it that we need to readdress quality excellence today, and what are some of the core challenges that your organizations are facing as we transition to this new world of AI and apps everywhere. I'm going to start. Remko, you're next to me.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Remko Heerings. I'm from the Netherlands. I work for a company called Medtronic, a global medtech company. 95,000 employees worldwide. We are in 150 countries that we have presence there. Our products are mainly divided across four sections: cardiovascular, diabetes, neuroscience, and MedSurg. And my role in the company is IT manager. I have a background in SAP, RPA, and now application development, also supporting low-code platforms and high-code. I think coming back to the question of Jennifer, why is quality assurance important these days? I think for us, it's because we are at the verge of a paradigm shift. We have been continuously trying to improve quality assurance in our organization as well, shift left, things like that. However, with AI now becoming more and more visible and popular, it poses new questions, right? So if we are not even aware ourselves about what quality assurance means in the context of AI, then how are we going to be prepared for a whole new type of applications that we are going to develop internally, and also with the help of bigger platforms introducing AI capabilities into their products. So I think that's the main reason. We have been optimizing, but we should also be prepared. What does AI mean in the context of quality assurance? And what does quality assurance mean in the context of AI?
And I'm sure that's something we're going to dig into in much more detail. And the topic, of shift left, I think now we're talking about shift everywhere, which is an entirely new concept. So Nuno, over to you.
So first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here. My name is Nuno Reis. I work in Millennium BCP, and I have the architecture, transformation, data, and AI areas. Going to your question, which is a challenging question. I was not expecting this entrance, but actually I think that as AI emerges in the way that we use AI, both for quality, for software development, so we start to have applications that were developed by AI, the way we can control their output and if they are really doing what they need to do, because the speed that we can generate applications is quite high. But the thing is, it is so high that you cannot control the quality of what is being generated, and so we will be letting some of the things pass without properly govern it, or we need to lower the bar actually on the efficiency side of things. And that is a key aspect for I would say software development. Another thing that it's also a big challenge when we are using AI is that the non-deterministic aspect of the outputs we get. So when we are developing programs and we know what they do, we can have like certification, testing on top of it, and we quite know if it has gone through that route, it will have that answer. In AI, that's not quite the case. and in generative AI, it's not the case. And so even if you have like APIs and you are expecting, if you are asking simple questions, it's easy to implement quality gates, as we did in deterministic software development. But if we are asking for more complex things, like if you migrate the code or if you analyze a document and you want not just a value, but you want some data out of it, like a report or something like that, you cannot have like a deterministic validation over an indeterministic way of generating content. So when we go into the making sure that what we are doing has quality and it is exactly what we are expecting to do, once we put AI in the loop, this is a little bit disconstructed, and so then you have to have agents that understand non-deterministic outputs to evaluate that output. But then those agents, how do you evaluate the quality of themselves? So I would say that this is probably the key thing, that when you introduce AI in the organizations, both in software development, but also on critical and actually non-critical processes, these controlling mechanisms are quite hard to implement and to ensure.
No. So essentially, then this puts a whole new spin on what testing actually means, but also the guardrails we need to be able to put in place to be able to make sure that we're actually pushing that, somebody presented it before, the business value at speed into the organization. Eduardo, over to you.
Everyone is expecting me to have the answers, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. Eduardo Amaral, I'm leading this practice, quality management, DevOps, and automation at Noesis. Agreeing, of course, with everything that was said, let me just take a step back. Why quality excellence? Of course, this is challenging, what Nuno just described. When you think about quality, you think about the initial steps, so have quality to bring effectiveness, right? So let's clean defects. Let's have seamless production implementations. Hopefully, organizations are not there anymore. They jumped into the next level, which is, let's do this with efficiency. Let's be efficient doing this. With automation, with hyper-automation. Obviously, some attempts, I still classify this as some attempts of bringing AI to support on this. And of course, what is being presented here, what we are facing these days on organizations, is that we need to jump into the next level. So we can't just think about quality. To be efficient within the quality tasks, we need to use quality to bring efficiency to everything else. And on top of that, we have these challenges that were just described. How can we test this? This is completely different. This is a completely different game. So why quality excellence? Organizations won't cope with all of this if the routes that I just described, if this path was not yet properly implemented. They won't be able to cope and to continue and to be able to deliver all of that. And, well, we know the speed, the cycles, that they will be shorter and shorter and shorter. AI will fuel everything. Will fuel the demands of customers, will fuel the speed that organizations need to put in place to cope with that. And quality will have an even more important role. So the answer is difficult, but for sure, having proper processes in place is part of the answer.
And that's actually a great segue, because, I mean, we all know that we've kind of been discussing DevOps for over 2 decades now, right? And, kind of part of that is people, process, technology, but it's also about the culture. So if we're actually thinking about changing the way that we approach quality excellence, then I would think that we need to think about what cultural changes we need to make internal to our organizations. And maybe, Remko, a question to you. Have you been looking at the cultural changes necessary to be able to instill a quality culture?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we've been seeing in the quality assurance area is that often it's been used as a synonym for testing, right? Which it isn't. It's more than that, because you also need to specify, okay, how do we perceive quality? What is the definition of quality for us when we develop new applications, when we develop new software? Are we also organized in such a way that we are actually making sure that we are reaching those levels of perceived quality or desired quality, right? And I think we need to transcend from the individualistic approach to quality assurance, for instance, from the testing and the developer level, and also bring it to sponsor and leadership level. Because very often we still get the question, right, when we try to improve quality assurance processes, well, that doesn't really fit into our sprint planning, right? So we are so busy and so occupied in the day-to-day delivery of application increments that we don't have the time or allow ourselves the time to work on the actual higher level definition of quality and how we should be living up to those challenges. So I think it's a mindset shift, and especially now with AI knocking on our door and also having one foot in already, it makes sense to also specify, okay, what do we expect from an AI application? We are so used to working with testing scenarios, for instance, that look for concrete outcomes, right? This is the input, this is the process, this is the output. But what if we work with a chatbot or conversational AI? What does quality look like? Which answer is good enough for us to say, okay, now it can go to production? That's the mindset shift that we need to create, and that also requires buy-in from leadership, like I said, because most of the tools we are going to need for that, in the automation part, for instance, is needs funding.
Yeah. And I think that would also require that you need scalability, right? So I mean, I know that a lot of organizations, we've been implementing DevOps practices for over 2 decades, but actually scaling those DevOps practices to actually be able to scale the quality culture as such is extremely difficult. And then suddenly in come the role of platform engineers and platform engineering teams. And now being able to marry DevOps and platform engineering together, we can actually give DevOps that scale that we need to push into the organization. And Nuno, I know that platform engineering is something that you've been looking at and doing at BCP. Maybe you could I think maybe for the audience, outline what platform engineering is a starting point, but also think about the role that platform engineering plays in delivering quality excellence.
Okay, I don't know if I can give a formal and accurate explanation about platform engineering, but what we have done is that we have structured the IT landscape onto a stack of platforms that automate and solve the cross-cutting concerns at the different levels. And so it is easy to scale. Let me give you some examples. We start with, for instance, the compute platform, that is actually the cloud platform that supports the different workloads, and it has it's very homogenic. It's based on Kubernetes. We have like a database that's on VMs, but everything else is running on Kubernetes. And the management of this platform is managed within, and it's intrinsic to the platform itself. So anyone that is using it is not aware of the complexity that it's underneath. And we have stacked like the cloud platform, we have the backend platform. So everything we do is based on a platform that's pre-built. You have a platform engineering team supporting it that implements the cross-cutting concerns as persistence, as messaging, as observability, all of these, let's say, cross-cutting concerns. And then on top of this platform, we have built purpose-driven platforms like the enterprise data platform that is for data. For AI, we have developed one for generative AI. And so when you want to build a product using generative AI or whatever, you have, let's say, the recipes in place, and you have the deep engineering already done. That's very hard. And so you can boost the delivery speed because you want to deliver business value, right? And usually the requirements that you have from the business are very focused on business value. They are not engineering focused. And so you decouple these two concerns, and you put deep engineering skills on platform engineering, making something that's like self-service, and then it can bootstrap the speed of people developing actually the business functionalities and delivering the business value to the business. Going to your point on quality, why does this improve quality? Because by design, a bunch of cross-cutting concerns are already implemented, and they are tested, and they are resilient to failure. And so and imagine, even if you have an error or you want to change a platform, you need to change it at platform level, and then it is deployed across all the stacks. So for you to do it's not a quality at the end of the line, but it's a quality by design principle. You set up things for the things to go good, not for the things to go, or actually for the things to go wherever they go, and then you test it and you correct the bad. You try to put quality up front because it is implemented in a way with a recipe that most of the time goes well.
So quality essentially is built into the processes and the self-service that organizations are plugging into as they access the platform. So you're building the right guardrails to be able to allow them to actually go faster, rather than to slow down to focus on the efficiency that we spoke about earlier. Yeah. And Eduardo, I think thinking about organizations that you're working with and thinking about how organizations should be approaching quality, how should organizations be aligning their capabilities to ensure that quality is almost like the glue that can join different actors in the software development lifecycle or the software value chain together?
Indeed, it can be a glue. The process to make it a glue, usually it hurts a little bit. Well, in some organizations more than in others, but it definitely can. Agile methodologies, whatever, if they are pure agile or adapted, each organization has its own way to do things. Kind of helps the shift-left process, because typically the implementation is to bring quality within the teams with either manual and automated, and well, then you make the links between them with the hyper-automation approaches for end-to-end validation purposes. So it really helped a lot on this process. It also obviously brings challenges, because to have quality as a culture, quality be part of the work of everyone, be part of the design. So when you imagine things, when architects design things, when it can be at application level, it can be at enterprise level, it's important to have it in mind. However, and this actually brings the quality everywhere, and everyone should be aware of that, the common goal. It's, however, very difficult sometimes to align individual, professional, career objectives and all of that enterprise objective. And that's usually something that brings sometimes difficulties to quality. And to give a simple example, right? So the deadline is there. We need to deploy. What should we sacrifice? Well, we all know this paradigm, right? So if we can't make quality something that is seamless implemented through the life cycle, usually it's those tasks are the ones that are more, that have more probability to be sacrificed. Another aspect which I think is important, and Nuno described quite well, of course, all of this, is that to have proper DevOps, to have proper pipelines, you have the continuous integration, you want to have the continuous testing. The quality is obviously dependency there. Not only dependency, but also a very strong dependency. Well, when we define it very well that platform engineering, among other things, allows us to scale DevOps, then this is exponential. If you don't have those dependencies ready, how can you scale them? Yeah. You go to a nightmare. And we didn't even reach the AI part, which will then bring more exponential on top of this already exponential thing. So indeed, it is a way to bring glue to the teams, to make them talk together. In Agile, you create silos, but then you need at some point to validate end-to-end, and of course, then you are bringing them together. So all of this properly implemented helps. The process to implement it and the approach that sometimes organizations follows might be tricky, and they are very challenging. And that's why we exist, so, well, thank you for that as well,
yes.
Right?
And can I add something to
yes,
that?
Absolutely.
Because when talking about this topic, I always hear the focus on the technology. But sometimes we seem to forget that DevSecOps and quality also has a big behavioral part to it, right? So what I mean is, I often see a hyper-focus on hyper-automation in the sense that people try to automate everything, as in 100%. But the hyper-automation conundrum to automate everything you can automate is not the same as 100% automation. Because 100% automation is something that you might be able to realize, but it will be inefficient, because you will also be automating things that should not be automated because you will not get any value from it. So what I advise the teams is to also take a step back. What are we doing? What does it even mean, an automation rate? If we put on the dashboard, we have an automation rate of 85%, while our test coverage is only 20%, then what does it mean? So it's all relative to each other, and we all need to stay aware of that and need to put everything in context, and I think that's the biggest shift in awareness on quality culture that we should try to establish.
Yeah. And I think that I'm going to be talking a bit about this afternoon, that automation, we call it the automation chasm or the gap, is a pretty important one. And there's this natural tendency for organizations to feel that they need to be automating more, but they don't need to get, as you're saying, to that 100%, because that has a lot of different repercussions to it. In fact, I mean, if we're thinking about DevSecOps, we at IDC find that, I mean, thinking about shifting security left, only 19% of the application portfolios are actually utilizing DevSecOps methodologies. So we still have a long way to go. And then, you know, of course, the security was always seen as the, let's say, the poor relative. Quality was also seen, as you could say, as the poor relative. And so we're trying to put all of these things into one singular process, and it's really difficult because every single actor in that chain is talking a different language and has different priorities. And I think that brings us on to the wonderful topic that we've explored a bit today, and that's AI. And, you know, the impact that AI is going to have on quality assurance and on quality practices. And maybe, Nuno, if I could, or I'll start with Nuno and then maybe I'll move over to Eduardo. But are there any examples in BCP where you've actually implemented a specific use case for Gen AI or AI agents within your teams to be able to address some quality excellence or quality practices?
So on quality, we have implemented, actually, we face an issue that is you accelerate, as I was mentioning, by generating or transforming code, but then you hit a bottleneck that is the certification part of it. When it's not automated, then you have a problem because it takes a lot of time, and it's the long run of the project when usually quality, it's like 20% of it, now it's like 70% of it. And so on that aspect, and you know, trying to be very focused on your point, we have, and very recently implemented a way of automating the certification. So you get, this was on the transformation of code from, you transform the code, actually from COBOL, SAS, whatever, to SQL, and then you need to validate this and to certify that the transformation was right. You have the results, but this comes into play with the original code, with the translated code, and to the results, and to the difference on the results that occur on one end and on the other end with different formats. So this is quite a difficult puzzle for you to do it manually. When you go into the automation, it's even harder. And we have been struggling, I would say, to make it work. Actually, with O1, it is finally working, because even with 4.0, with GPT-4.0, we were not getting good results. He would say, hey, here's an improved version, this is good. It was not good, it was still, it would still have problems. With O1, finally, we are seeing that it really understands and corrects what he has done. But on certification, this is, I would say, the most structural thing that we have done on improving quality using GenAI to make sure that that what we have done is actually going right. Then you have the test case definition, but it is, it's just a work item. It does not validate actually the software. And for software validation, we also face an issue that has to do with if we want to have automated testing, for instance, on front ends. On APIs, it's quite easy. Well, it's easier. But when we go to front ends, then we need to set up tests, automated tests that go into front ends that have heterogeneous structures, and so it's quite hard for us to generate, let's say, the automation, the test automation based on AI, user stories, test cases. That is something that we haven't still figured out how. We have started to try to do it, but it's quite hard because it's not as structured as we can then let's say scale. But I would say that on generative AI and what we were mentioning before, there is a synergy that's quite interesting. That is, if you have a platform, it's a lot easier to scale Gen AI because you have the ground rules on which he can operate, and then he can scale using this platform. For instance, if you are creating services, if you tell him, hey, create something, he will create something. And sometimes it will work, it has some minor errors. But if you give him some ground rules or some platform basis, the primitives, that you generate, let's say, the skeleton, and then he goes and enriches and puts the business inside that skeleton, that gives us a lot more quality in the end product that we're having. So we have, let's say, this synergy that scales when you have the structured approach up front.
And because we see a lot with the data that we're collecting, that there are a lot of high expectations from the application of generative AI and AI to particularly testing. And we actually see that we have about 70% of organizations are telling us that they're really expecting that they're going to see a big productivity gain in that testing, in that test automation space. And I just wanted to kind of test, and maybe this is to you, Eduardo, as well, are expectations meeting reality? And you talked about the challenges of actually putting this into place. So what is actually the productivity gain that you're seeing from the application of this?
Yeah, I was telling one case, it's huge if it works with O1, but on the other ones, the expectations are there, but the results are not.
Yeah.
On testing, I think it's quite hard. In the beginning, everyone was telling that it was quite easy. I think that for requirements definition, for code generation, it's easier, and it's done. We can see it. It's in the bank, but in the world, we can see it. For testing, I see a lot of promise. Everyone has high expectation, and maybe we haven't figured out why, but we are not being able to scale.
Yeah, high expectations, high frustrations, right?
Yeah.
I think we go again back to the processes, and that figure is interesting, and we already discussed about it. So, of course, 70% of people will want AI to kind of solve this because it's a subject that usually people tend to avoid, okay? Like we say, it's not sexy. I don't like it, so no, AI will come and solve it for us. It's just not like that. I think, and even worse is that, like Nuno and Remko are describing, AI will also play a massive role on code generation, on how things arrive there. So if you're not ready today, the proper processes in place, how will we be ready tomorrow just by dropping AI there and expect AI to do the job for you? Because the challenge will be even bigger, right? So I often used to say that without hyperautomation and now AI, you are not even in the game. So this is a must-have. With relying only on hyperautomation and AI to solve this, in terms of maturity, you will be basically exactly in the same place as you are today. what can bring you to the next level of maturity and to cope with this is to really have proper processes in place. And this is what we usually tend to see organizations not being able to. There are many reasons, and different organizations, different characteristics, different reasons. It's not because they don't want to, obviously, right? It's challenging, and I think that's, of course, we need to focus on technology, and you were asking which attempts do we see in the AI today. Yeah, we see attempts. We see things trying to move. I'm just not sure things are being done. In some organizations, yes. In lots of organizations, being done on the proper way, doing proofs of concept, proof of value, just for the sake of putting a tick on the box that, did you do AI in the organization this year? Yes, I did. It just didn't go anywhere, right? You must start, of course, small, but with a major objective already in mind, and then whatever you are doing as a proof of value, you must do it already, something that you must be able to scale. Otherwise, well, if we are scaling with platform engineering, if we will be scaling in terms of volume of code, because AI will also fuel that, you won't go anywhere. So this is probably the main mistake. Organizations are running into AI, not always having a proper idea of what they can do. Create test cases, yes, like Nuno was saying, but it's not really fueling and bringing efficiency. Of course, it's helping, but you should give a step further. How do you put that on your life cycle? Should it also kind of automate, if not completely? We know that AI assistants, they have failures, but they should be able to speed up on that. And just to finalize this idea, I still believe that humans will still be there having the most part of ensuring the effectiveness. And I would recommend, from what we have today, this will change. From what we know today, AI should be there as an efficiency boost, okay? And people there, so humans are needed. Basically, this is the final conclusion, to ensure the effectiveness, to ensure that whatever AI is doing there in terms of efficiency translates into effectiveness in exactly what we want to achieve. This is obviously easier to say than to implement, and that's why Nuno is very right, is quite tough to achieve it.
Yeah, and Remko, I mean, from your point of view, how do you see the role of Gen AI and AI agents evolving at your organization?
I think for me the question is not so much about how it will evolve, but also how we can cope as an organization with it. On the one hand, I think because technology advances, it will get more and more attention, but we also have to make sure that the business side of the house is able to keep up with it, right? If the guy just presented that how it's all integrated, and I like that picture, but there is more needed on business side to also work together with the business on specifying requirements. What should we be able to do? It's like, you cannot solve a Rubik's Cube by doing the colors in sequence, right? You have to all keep it in perspective and make sure that whatever you're going to implement, everybody has to be on board. And the reason why I say that is also out of my experience with RPA. Once you position a technology like AI or RPA, people tend to go for it as the one solution. But it isn't always the case that AI is your answer. We have traditional technology that might be even better equipped. Having said that, I see more and more functions and applicability of AI come up. I see a lot of potential, but we have to make sure that we are mature enough as a delivery organization as well and as a business to properly work with it. The question I also get quite a lot is about ROI. How do we prove that our ROI is high enough for instance, a conversational AI implementation? And then I always use the example, well, at home in a private environment, if we use ChatGPT to win an argument with your wife or husband, that's a form of happiness, right? So there is a balance between experimentation and trying out new technology and focusing on the really big value-adding initiatives.
Yeah.
And so not go into every single opportunity blind, but make your picks.
Yeah. So it's making sure that the use case is the right one for that right opportunity, and making sure that everybody understands that, because otherwise we're wasting time, money, and effort.
Yeah.
And Nuno, maybe one for you, thinking about the experiences you've had, what was, let's say, the biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it when you were kind of looking at these use cases?
So I think that I have a little different perspective than you had. Actually, we created like a platform to democratize the use of AI throughout the company, and say, hey, use it. Mm-hmm. You have an efficiency objective. Use it as you want, on a secure way, with all of those guardrails, that security, compliance, whatever. And please use it and make yourself better and use it for whatever you want. And actually, usually the first feeling is, this is brilliant, this is very good, but it's the first feeling. The second, well, it's good. But then for you to get from that good to very good and excellent, and to use it as that is, I would say, the major challenge we have. And for instance, for call summarization, that's a common use case, but when you get out of it, like the intent from the customer, how is he feeling, how's the empathy, that kind of thing, I think it's quite challenging. And then there are several humans in the loop validating that the AI is doing the right work. But I would say that the biggest challenge that we have faced on doing this is, once again, the promise. We have, I would say, maybe 250 agents. I was looking at it yesterday. But I think that from those, maybe 100 are doing something. Okay. The others are, missed promises. They put it, they create it, but then it is not easy to make something that is production ready, that you can use, and that you have, let's say, confidence to use it. And this, from the expectation to then to the reality, and then to raise the reality to the level that you want, is the toughest part, and it takes time, it takes business knowledge, and you need some kind of open-minded guys that are inventors, that can invent new ways and weird ways sometimes of doing things for you to raise this bar. And I would say that is the main difficulty, it's going from good to great on AI.
And we're coming to the end of our session, but maybe if I could just ask each of you just to think about the future, as we're thinking about the futurescape, and just think about what do you think is going to be the key theme that really defines 25 or 26 from a quality excellence point of view? I don't know who.
Any particular order? I can start. That's okay. I think, and I'm quite obliged to agree with both of you, right? But AI with a purpose. I think Remko said this, and I think this is a key message. I think that having AI with a purpose, a proper plan, and we know, like Nuno was saying, that we will reach a point when it's more and more difficult to go from the good to the very good to the excellent to the perfect to the. But I tend to say that the optimal is enemy of the very good, right? So organizations need to plan. They need to have a proper plan in place, and whatever they do, they must do it having that in mind, right? What's happening right now is, well, we already had the self-healing strategies on tools for test automation in place for a few years. It's nothing new. Models that can now learn, so they can give test cases out of the box. This is available. They must now, the next phase probably is to, this is ongoing, is to be able to understand the organization context information, so the business logic, which areas in the application have more defects, which areas are more critical, being able to support also in risk analysis, make the models learn all of that, and they will for sure be an efficiency boost to the organization. One thing is, how do we test AI within applications? How do we test AI? Completely different things, how we use AI to test that and everything else. And I think that this is key. Organizations must understand how they can plug these models, make them learn and understand where they will fit in the life cycle. And Futurescape, this is quite tough, but a lot will happen. And I believe that a lot of tooling will come out in the coming months, years, who knows? But it will. And be ready with the process, be ready with the strategy to cope them, to include them, and to be able to do this path.
Fantastic. So unfortunately, we are out of time, but maybe one word each. What word is going to be the most important word this year?
I would say efficiency. So the quality and efficiency. Let's put it like well, it has to do with maintaining the quality once you are generating a lot of things that you do not control. And so this is a very powerful tool on the ends of a lot of people. And so it will scale the adoption, but the quality, it's quite hard. Oh,
We've been told with time out. So thank you very much to my panelists, and thank you.
Sorry, Remko.
No worries.
I was just get